This is inner motion, a channel for the ones who don't need to be seen to be dangerous. There comes a time when silence becomes your strategy, when you stop talking about it and start becoming it, when you no longer need permission, you just move. This is for the ones who vanish to evolve, who train when no one's watching, who rise without warning, because the ones who disappear in discipline are the ones they never see coming. You don't need to announce your transformation. You don't need to broadcast your healing. You don't need to warn anyone that the old you is gone. Let them think you disappeared. Let them think you lost. Because you didn't lose, you left. You chose exile. You chose the shadows. You chose the long road, with no applause, because you understand something most people never will. Growth doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the dark and silence and stillness. While the world is shouting, you're sharpening. While they're watching each other, you're watching yourself. There's something sacred about moving in silence. Not for attention, not for aesthetics, but for power. Because you've seen what noise costs. You've seen what happens when people speak before they're ready. You've seen what happens when they post their progress too early, when they chase validation instead of results. You're not here to perform, you're here to evolve. That's why you vanished. That's why you train in silence. That's why nobody sees the work. And that's the point. Because when you rise again, when they see you next, they won't recognize you. Not because you changed, but because you became. You became the version of you that doesn't beg for attention. You became the version that kills comfort. The version built on repetition, on discipline, on obsession. And no, it's not glamorous. It's not impressive to outsiders. It doesn't look good on social media, but it builds something they'll never have. Self-respect, peace, real power. You disappeared to rebuild. And when you return, you're not coming back to prove anything, because the version of you that needed to be seen is dead. The new you doesn't talk. He moves, he doesn't explain. He acts. He doesn't wait for approval. He gives himself permission. He doesn't chase validation. He creates undeniable results. And when people finally notice, they'll ask where you've been. They'll ask how you got so strong, so clear, so cold, so focused, and you'll say nothing. Because power doesn't speak. It shows up. It enters the room and shifts the entire atmosphere. This is that version of you. The one they don't see coming. The one that trained in silence, bled in silence, broke in silence, and rebuilt everything in the dark. Let the old version rest. Let the one who needed applause die. Now it's only you, your mirror, your mission. Let them talk, let them post. Let them guess, you've got work to do, you've got a war to win. You've got a future to build. This is the rebirth, this is the resurrection. This is ghost mode, and from this moment on, everything changes. Silence isn't weakness. It's not retreat. It's not fear, it's control. It's discipline. It's presence. People talk when they need something, validation, attention, approval. But silence. Silence is what you use when you don't need anything. When you're not chasing anyone. When you've stopped begging the world to notice you. You're not quiet because you're afraid. You're quiet because you've outgrown the noise. Because real confidence doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't need a post. It doesn't need permission. It just moves. It builds in silence. It suffers in silence. It prepares in silence. And when it finally speaks, the world listens. Because silence sharpens you. It tunes out the static. It lets you hear your own voice. The voice that tells you to keep going, to stay focused, to stop explaining yourself. Silence is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of purpose. Every time you bite your tongue instead of reacting, that's power. Every time you keep a plan to yourself, that's power. Every time you build without broadcasting, that's power. Because you don't owe anyone a preview. You don't owe them your process. What you're building is sacred. It's personal. It's spiritual. And it doesn't need to be seen to be real. Silence is where you become untouchable. Because no one can attack what they can't predict. No one can sabotage what they don't see coming. You don't need to prove your potential. You just need to protect it. So stay silent, stay sharp, stay moving. And when it's time, let the Results make the noise, because the most dangerous man in the room is the one who says the least. Validation feels good for 5 seconds, but it kills you for 5 years, because the moment you need applause to keep going, you've already lost. You've made your fuel external. You've made your identity fragile. You've made your drive dependent on noise. And the second that applause fades, so do you. Most people never grow because they're addicted to being seen growing. They want to look like they're improving. They want to be praised for effort. They want to be clapped for barely changing. But that's not growth. That's performance. Real growth is ugly. It's boring. It's repetitive. There are no trophies for showing up when no one's watching. There are no likes for staying consistent through pain. There are no claps when you fail silently and keep going. But that's where growth actually happens. When you stop checking if they're watching. When you stop needing feedback to move. When you stop performing progress and actually earn it. Needing validation makes you weak, because it means you need a witness to stay committed. But you don't need a witness. You need discipline. You need solitude. You need clarity. You grow faster when you disappear. You grow stronger when you detach. Because the truth is, growth doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be done. You don't need a motivational quote. You don't need someone to cheer you on. You need a routine. You need a plan. You need the guts to do it in silence and keep going. Validation is a drug. It's sweet in the beginning. It hits your ego like a dopamine rush, but it leaves you empty when the applause ends. And that's why the ones who train in silence, they always win, because they never needed an audience to begin with. You don't owe them a reason. You don't owe them a breakdown. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you move or why you change, because the more you explain, the more they expect. The more you justify, the more they judge. The more you open up, the more they try to control the outcome. Explaining yourself becomes a trap, a performance, a slow death of your intuition. At some point, you stop living for clarity and you start living for approval. But that ends now. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to explain your ambition. You don't need to explain your silence. Let them misunderstand you. Let them guess. Let them gossip. Because the moment you stop explaining is the moment you reclaim your power. You stop managing their perception and start mastering your direction. You stop negotiating your standards and start embodying them. You stop seeking their permission and start giving yourself authority. Explanations come from insecurity. Silence comes from confidence. If you know who you are, why waste time convincing those who don't? If you know where you're going, why stop to map the journey for people who aren't coming? You're not here to be understood. You're here to become undeniable. So move without warning, build without announcements, change without permission. Let the results tell the story. Let your discipline be the loudest thing about you. Let your globe explain everything they thought they knew. Because the strongest thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is when you feel like something's missing. Isolation is when you choose space because you know it's what you need to evolve. This is the era where you step away from noise, where you don't chase relationships, where you stop craving connection from people who drain you. You disconnect, not because you're broken, but because you're rebuilding. You're not lost. You're focused. You're not bitter. You're filtering. You're not antisocial. You're anti-sloppy, anti-dramatic, anti-distracted. You've been available too long to people who never deserve. Access to open to energy that left you weaker. To responsive to people who were never meant to be permanent. Now you're unavailable. Now you're hard to reach. Now you're locked in, because isolation is your forge. The quiet space where your next self is being crafted. The silence where you rewire your thoughts. The stillness where you unlearn who they told you to. Be and remember who you actually are. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's not exile, it's elevation. When you're alone, you hear the truth more clearly. You feel your instincts louder. You stop performing. You start recalibrating. Most people fear being alone because they don't like who they are without distractions. But not you. You stepped into the solitude. You embraced it. You used it. You let the silence teach you what noise never could. You let the darkness expose what the spotlight always hid. You let go of the need to be seen and started seeing yourself in isolation. You become dangerous because you're no longer pulled by approval. You're no longer shaped by noise. You're no longer addicted to connection. You're building something sacred in private. You're transforming without posting. You're evolving without applause. And when you reemerge, you'll be sharper. You'll be clearer. You'll be unrecognizable. Not because you got louder, but because the silence changed you. And the world won't be ready for the version that walks out of the fire alone. This is where the real work begins. When no one's watching. When there are no comments, no likes, no recognition, just you and a decision to keep going. The gym is empty. The journal is private. The habits are invisible. And that's where the new identity is forged. Because who you are in public is built by who you are in private. This isn't about looking disciplined. It's about being disciplined. This isn't about talking like a winner. It's about thinking like one. You can't build a new life with the old mindset. You can't create a new future with the same self-image. So you tear it all down. You kill the old patterns. You reject the old excuses. You abandon the victim mentality. And you step into the version of you that isn't emotional, isn't impulsive, isn't entitled. The version of you that wakes up early because the work matters more than the comfort, that trains harder because average isn't an option, that says no because alignment is louder than temptation. This version is born in the dark, and he doesn't care about being seen. He's not addicted to attention, he's addicted to becoming. You don't become him by accident. You build him with every rep, every discipline, every delayed gratification. This is identity sculpting, not pretending, not performing. It's not about acting like your future self. It's about bleeding for him, training for him, becoming him. And it's slow, it's lonely, it's unglamorous, but it's real. And when that identity becomes automatic, when your standard becomes sacred, when your decisions match your destiny, that's when everything shifts. That's when people ask how you changed so fast. But you didn't. You just changed in silence. And now, the results speak loud enough for both of you. Forget the hype. Forget the motivation. Forget the grand declarations. What rebuilds you is routine. Doing the same thing every day without skipping. Doing the hard things without needing a reason. Showing up when you don't feel like it. Discipline is boring. That's why most people never build anything with it. But that boredom, that repetition, that's where the new life is hiding. You don't get stronger by doing different things all the time. You get stronger by doing the right things every single time. Wake up early, train hard, eat clean, think clear. Protect your energy. Say no more than you say yes. For the post, not for the flex, but because you said you would. Because your word means more than your feelings. Because your routine means more than your emotions. Because you're building a foundation that doesn't shake. It doesn't matter if you're tired. It doesn't matter if it's raining. It doesn't matter if you're not in the mood. Discipline doesn't negotiate. It just moves. Repetition rewires your brain. It turns effort into instinct, pain into precision, focus into identity. Every workout, every journal entry, every clean meal, every silent decision to stay on the path. That's the rebuild. That's the construction site of your future. And it's not impressive to outsiders, but it's undeniable because you'll feel it. You'll see it. You'll carry it not on your skin, but in your eyes, in your posture, in your presence. Routine is where you stop hoping and start earning. Discipline is where you stop waiting and start becoming. The quiet rebuild is real, and when it's done, there won't be an announcement, just a new version of you walking out of the fire. Unshakable, unstoppable, unrecognizable. No one's cheering, no one's watching, no one's impressed. Good. That's exactly where you're supposed to be, because when no one claps, that's when you learn who you really are. When you keep going, not for validation, but because it's non-negotiable. When the grind is silent and you show up anyway. When no one tells you you're doing great, but you do it anyway. That's not weakness. That's not failure. That's phase one, the invisible season. The part they'll never understand. the work that never makes it to the highlight reel. No one claps for early mornings. No one claps for broken sleep and sore muscles. No one claps for skipping comfort and choosing growth. They won't clap for your discipline. They won't notice your sacrifices. They won't reward your consistency. Not yet, because you're not doing it for claps. You're doing it for change. You're not doing it for likes. You're doing it for legacy. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for the future version of you, the one who deserves better. This is the part they all skip, the part they all avoid, the part they can't fake, and it's hard, it's lonely, it's quiet. But that silence, that's proof. Proof that you're not performing. Proof that you're not chasing attention. Proof that you're not driven by noise. You're building something deeper, something real, something solid. And one day, when the claps do come, when people finally notice, when they finally ask how you did it, you won't need to say a word. Because every silent day stacked, every unseen rep counted, every moment, without praise, paid off. And now you don't need applause. You are the proof. You don't just change, you disappear. You go silent, you go deep. You go inward, and when you come back, they won't know who they're looking at, because you don't carry the same energy. You don't laugh the same. You don't respond the same. You've seen too much, felt too much, cut too much, and now you carry presence. Now you carry precision. Now you walk with purpose. You used to beg for space. Now you take it. You used to seek their approval. Now you give yourself permission. You used to explain your work. Now they feel it when you enter the room. They'll think you changed overnight. But this wasn't an upgrade. It was a resurrection. They'll say you're cold. They'll say you're distant. They'll say you're different. Good. You're not who you used to be. You buried him on purpose. You shed the softness. You let go of the version that wanted to please. And now you walk with silence and fire. You don't argue. You don't justify. You don't lower yourself just to be understood. You live at a different frequency now. You speak less. You listen more. You feel everything, but you show nothing. Because this new version of you, he's not built for applause. He's built for war. And when they see you again, they'll realize you didn't just change. You became unrecognizable. There's no announcement. There's no post. There's no grand reveal. You just walk in and everything shifts. Because the day you return, you won't speak. You won't explain. You won't prove. You'll just move different. Think different, carry different energy. They'll feel it before you even say a word. Because power doesn't perform. It doesn't shout. It doesn't ask for permission. It arrives and commands attention. That's you now. A presence that doesn't need to speak to be felt. A mindset that doesn't need validation to move. A standard that doesn't break. Even in silence, you've spent months in the shadows, training, rebuilding, bleeding in the dark. You've suffered quietly, healed silently, evolved privately, and now you return, not to be seen, but to dominate, not to be liked, but to lead, not to be accepted, but to outgrow everything that once held you back. There is no speech, there is no show, there is no drama, just results, just presence, just dominance. You used to beg to be heard. Now, your silence says everything. You used to explain yourself. Now your progress explains it all. The new you. He doesn't seek recognition. He makes it impossible to ignore. And when they see you now, they won't just be surprised. They'll be stunned, because you didn't just return stronger. You returned silent. And silence is the loudest statement of all. This is Inner Motion, a channel for the ones who train in silence, who rise without applause, who destroy weakness, not with noise, but with discipline. If you're done chasing motivation and ready to bury the soft version of yourself, then welcome. You're not here to feel better. You're here to become unrecognizable, because the strongest version of you, he doesn't need to announce himself. He trains, he sharpens, he rebuilds, and one day, when the world finally sees him, they won't believe he was born from silence, but you'll know. Train in silence. They won't see you coming. Subscribe for more, because this isn't just motivation. This is transformation. This is Inner Motion.